Okay.
Mm-mm-mm.
Okay. I think we're live, so do you guys hear us?
Are we hearable? Are we hearable? Are we horrible? What's going on? Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
you can hear Dan?
Hello? What's going on?
They hear voices.
Hello.
Hello! My name is Dan. I'm here to look at comics. Hello? I'll open the
Hello.
stream just to see.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we're hearable.
Okay.
Cool.
Maybe it's just Amit.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Can you hear
Not
Amit?
I'll be the silent partner.
Can you hear all three of us?
He's
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
So apparently I'm there. Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, he's there.
Okay.
There.
It was an unusual start, but
So
No, it's actually a very usual start.
yes.
As anyone who's ever listened to any stream I've ever been on knows, I drink coffee and I talk way too much. So we've decided to just scroll through the forum in real time and talk about every single entry.
Yeah.
All of them. So we're going to do that.
Awesome.
And it's going to take forever. And enjoy.
Exactly what Dan said. So
Yeah.
you're all gonna get a big heap of pile of stuff.
I'm sure we've got the usual Twitch delay, but I'm going to keep the chat open on the side just in case anyone has any questions. I'm going to type in the chat here. Hello. I'm Steve Lichman in the chat. You can tag me. And if I see you tag me, I'll answer a question about your piece. But, yeah.
So, guys, if we have any problems with the stream, let us know.
Yes, please.
Definitely do that right away.
So, do we want to go through everything and then talk about the first, second, third, or do you want to do first, second, third, and then talk about everything?
Maybe let's talk about everything.
Okay. Got it.
Well, whatever you prefer. So.
No, I agree. We can talk about everything, and then our first, second, third picks will make more sense because they will have context.
Yep.
There we go.
Sounds good to me. All right, let's get started.
Got it. All right, so first up, we have a series of entries by Neo. And Neo did a bunch of different ones and decided to do a final for Down the Hatch, but included comic sketches and layouts and studies and little tests for, I think, 3 other complete comics down at the bottom. So ended up doing like 4. But yeah.
Yeah, it was an awesome amount of work, as she always does.
Always hard
really
work.
cool.
Yeah, and actually she picked probably the best one out of all the choices, so the work wasn't for nothing.
I threw a link in the chat if anyone wants to read the comics as we talk about them, in case anyone watching doesn't have that or is watching with chat replay or something. Awesome. But anyway, so first off, I can say pretty easily, because we talked about this earlier, Neo definitely gets an A for effort in terms of doing the most amount of work in the genre. Like, tried to do a bunch of different comics, really tried to hone in on which one was going to be the best entry, took that one, polished it a little bit more, really dived in and did a ton of work, and that's hugely admirable. Like, showing all that stuff is really great.
And oh, by the way, she did that in a week.
Yeah, really cool.
not 3, but in a week. So
really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, this one's Down the Hatch. It's really cool. It's a simple 1-page story that makes sense with a good payoff at the end, where there's a guy walking to have a beer, falls down a hole, keeps falling, doesn't realize how long he's been falling, has an idea, calls his friend, explains the situation, becomes a national bestseller. So, beginning, middle, end, clearly understandable story. The panel layouts are good, really balanced. It's a 3-3-3-3, so you've got 12 panel page, really good balance. I really like that you took the title of it and found a place to put it in the middle of the page that didn't feel forced.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's something that is tough to do, but you found a way to do it. So it gets away from the typical thing of the title being up in the top left-hand side or top right-hand side like it usually is. You incorporated it into the composition, which is really cool. You're using lots of cool camera angles. You're playing around with oh, there's a guy walking, and then straight shot looking down the hole with 1 point, vanishing point, and then like a 3/4 shot of him falling in, and then drawing the body foreshortened, and doing kind of a comical falling thing like you'd see in a movie where it's just a flat panel with a lot of vertical space. And yeah, really trying to move that camera around and see what's going on and find clever ways to do the panel layouts, and works really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys have anything else to say?
Probably not. You were very thorough with this. So.
Oh Lord, it's gonna
No,
be a, it's gonna
I
be a long
actually,
stream.
I've got one thing to say is, this was almost the easiest for me to read.
Yeah,
like-
it's a good. The clarity is a huge
so
issue.
while she was like changing up all these different things and trying different things, she didn't lose clarity in any of that. It just flowed really well. So, yeah, I didn't have to stop to think what happened.
Right.
So that's really awesome.
Right,
I
yeah,
thought.
clarity, especially with a one-page comic, because the tough things going forward you're going to see with other entries, and boiling a story down into one page so that you can share it around on social media, get more people to see it, understand it, eliminate the unnecessary plot points, and get a really refined comic page. One of the biggest things you're going to struggle with doing that is clarity, because you have to make it instantly understandable, instantly readable. If people get through your 12 panels, for example, on this one, and don't understand what happened in it, that's a problem. So being able to pull that off and make it readable right off the bat is a really big accomplishment. So good job with that. And I'm guessing most people doing this haven't really done comics before.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah, so this is probably
I think a couple have.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, most of them, this is the first time.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And I won't go into the extra ones, but people should go read those too, just if they want to see, only because of time. But I would talk about all of them, but that would take way too long. But good job, and thank you for showing this.
Yeah. Awesome.
Moving on
So
to Garish,
next.
or Garesh, I'm not sure which. Garesh did a fun thing where incorporated 3 of the possible titles to use. This one's got Average Dragons, because the dragon candy tastes average. This one's got Death and Taxes, because the tax collector shows up. And it's got Down the Hatch, because it very clearly shows the open mouth dumping bag into mouth shot. So, good job with that, finding a way to incorporate those 3. But as a result, I don't know which one we're judging it on. Is this Average Dragons? Is this Death and Taxes? I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably dragons. Because,
Yeah. It's hard to tell, because it goes way out of its way to show the candy and talk about the fact that it's average and that it's dragon candy. But then also the point of the comic is that the guy dies and a tax collector shows up. So the only confusing thing on this one, because your panels are well laid out, your stuff's drawn, I really like that you decided to break the format and show a full character on the side and get a little creative with your layout. Like, that's really cool. Admirable that you did that. Having parallel lines that go between different panels, like those diagonals, that's also really cool. But the only thing that's an issue is that we don't know which one this is supposed to be more than the other. The kind of point of this exercise was to create a story based on one of the themes that was available and really sell it in a page. The challenges of that being eliminating unnecessary stuff, figuring out exactly how many panels to show to convey that point, getting creative with your composition and layout, all that good stuff. But because this is kind of 2 things, I'm not really sure which one it's supposed to be. So basically what I'm getting at is instead of dedicating half of it to average dragons and half of it to death and taxes, you could have done one full page that really explored one of those two things. But I mean, it's still good. It's just basically like you're doing a little bit with two things instead of a lot with one thing. So I'd say if you do something like this again, obviously because it's not going to be probably in a contest format and you can, not worry about the themes that were suggested, definitely try and fill a page with one consistent thing that has a payoff at the end that's set up in the beginning. But that would be the only feedback I have on that.
Actually, I've got a little bit to add to that, which might rearrange things, because I was just thinking about what you were saying there. And that thing of combining the two ideas, that's actually what I had the problem with, is that the payoff at the end felt less important because I don't think you combine the ideas well. If, for example, and this just came to me, the tax thing came up first. So say the guy's looking at this dragon candy and it's like, oh, do not take these, they're toxic to humans. And then the tax guy comes in and says your payment's due, and then he actually eats the candy because he doesn't want to pay them, and he dies.
Yeah.
It's like kind of combining the ideas a little bit stronger, whereas right now the tax due thing, it feels a little bit just plonked in there.
Yeah.
So,
combining the two, because the whole idea of this was simplicity. So you take a simple idea, you do one page, because one page is simpler than doing multiple pages. Forcing the two ideas for the narrative into the one page, even if you rearrange it to be better, which I agree you could have done, it's still going to feel like it's a little jumbled and separate, because right now, the top 3 panels are one comic, and the bottom 2 panels are a totally different comic.
Yeah.
So that's really the main thing. But in terms of pros, really like your drawing, really like your colors, really good stuff. Trying to break up the flatness of the boxes by putting that full character on the side. Those are really cool compositional, creative decisions. Just I would recommend try doing some more pages for fun if you enjoyed this. Explore some ideas that you think are cool. If you can't think of anything, take one of the other ones from this contest you didn't do and try to fill a page with it. But good design decisions, just a little split in half.
Yep. Totally. Piotr, do you have anything on top of that?
Well, basically, one thing that I could add is that I like the idea of using the gradients, simple gradient on the faces. So, yeah, but everything was covered by you, so, yeah.
Sorry, I'm drinking coffee. I'm gonna ramble like crazy.
Hey, it makes our job a lot easier.
Yeah,
so go for it.
You're really good with the critic stuff.
Just go on autopilot and talk till my jaw hurts.
We'll just break in there every once in a while and get you to take a couple of breaths.
There you go. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Wall Jamboree. What's up, Wall Jamboree? So this one's cool. This is Down the Hatch. I like that you took the words in the top and found a way to integrate the title and make it exciting, the diagonal and the black background with the white text. And looking at it at a glance, it feels like those aren't necessarily speech in the comic that you'd pay attention to, because that's where like the title and the name of the artist and the copyright would normally go. So I like that you found a way to incorporate those in a way that feels familiar to comics, but also helps the story. I like that Down the Hatch for you is this cool adventure of like a woman falling into this troll's stomach. That was a cool execution of that idea. Really original.
Yeah.
And then the guys down there and they're hanging out and they're in love and the stomach acid, and then they go through the intestines and they get shit out and they're in a big pile of shit. So I enjoyed the payoff. I enjoy that you're going through the digestive system. I think that's a really cool idea for Down the Hatch. Let's see. It's definitely a concise story from start to finish. It has a payoff. You can follow through. I think, let's see here. I like that you kind of arranged the panels in a way that wasn't so flat. It almost feels like you laid out a bunch of Polaroids on the floor, and some of them are at skewed angles, some of them are at straight angles, some of them are overlapping. Like, that makes the page feel a lot more active and interesting as a result. It kind of takes the feel of falling at weird angles through a space and sells it by actually turning the canvas that way. So it makes us feel as viewers a little, discombobulated, like she would feel falling. Those are all cool decisions, cool colors. I like that you switched up the black text and the white text against backgrounds to emphasize certain things, like my hero was so handsome, then everything started spinning. Because then everything started spinning is in white on black as opposed to just the black text, it gives it more punch and it makes it feel more important. So like, it's almost like adding bold text to a font in like writing where, we talked for hours, then everything started spinning. Like it gives it that extra drama that you want it to have. So I like that a lot. Yeah, I like that last panel a ton. I like they're holding hands. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I think maybe
that last panel payoff is great.
I think maybe the only thing as like a thing I would add to this is behind the text in the final panel, maybe the troll walking away or wiping its ass or something. Just to show the big thing that they just came out of to sell the scale. Because we saw her going into the mouth and we saw the fingers holding her. So I think a little callback to the first panel to tie it together with a nice little bow would be maybe seeing the feet walk away or seeing it squat in the distance, kind of scratching itself after taking the shit or something there just to connect that first panel to that last panel. But otherwise, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Thoughts?
Wow. I cannot add anything to that.
Yeah, you literally said everything I wanted to say.
Damn it!
I think pretty much. This is again one of those that I think flowed and read really nicely.
Yeah, give it clarity. Really clear.
Yeah, clarity. Mm-hmm. So some of the others are definitely don't hit that, even though they may be kind of like technically a little bit better. But I think for a comic, especially one pager, clarity is kind of one of the most important things.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because you don't want to get people to have to read it twice.
Unless the point of the comic is for you to go, what did I just read? Then you don't want people to say, what did I just read?
Yeah, exactly.
It has to, if that's what you're going for, it has to be very intentional. Let's see.
So, that's all I got.
Adam Lena. I'm going to be a little tough on you.
Yeah.
Because you put me and Dave in your comic, and we're shy people. So there you go. But anyway, you've got the Crimson Daggers dungeon. You've got this dude suspended over a hole. You got this cool guy hanging out. What was the theme on this one? I can't remember.
Down the hatch, I think.
Down the hatch, right? Because he's over the hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry. Okay. Viewing pleasure.
Unless there's a knife rape title somewhere.
No, I think it is. That's what I was wondering. I think it is down the hatch. I couldn't tell because there's like corpse dudes at the bottom that end up like fighting the guy. So I wasn't sure if it was down the hatch or corpse. Yeah. I think it is down the hatch though, because it goes out of the way to show him falling.
Yep.
But yeah, I love our little goblin dude. Our little guy with the little hat and the pointy ears. He's my favorite part of this comic. But anyway, the one thing I will say is very good reference to Dave's lust for Tostitos and salsa. I don't like seeing us in a comic because we're like, I don't know, I feel gross about but whatever. But I do like
the context. The context might be part of it too.
I don't want anyone to feel like we're masters of a study dungeon or anything, but like I love that you gave Dave the Tostitos and the salsa just as a friend of his, because that's totally true. But anyway, in terms of the comic itself, really good. Really, like I was mentioning earlier in the last panel thing where you show the troll's fingers in the mouth and then you see it walking away in the last panel. You actually did that with this one because you show the two of us in the chairs watching it happening, and then we don't come back until the last panel from a different angle in front. So you actually did that thing where you start and finish it on the same beat, and then you have the action in between. So it feels like bookends. It feels contrite, and well
Concise?
thought out compositionally. So
Yeah.
it has a callback at the end that very clearly goes to the beginning and makes the whole thing feel like it's contained. In terms of clarity, yeah, I like the panel layout. I like that in the first one you see the guy hanging, and then it's a zoom in on that. The guy falls. You see the impact where he hits the ground. Um, Maybe in that impact panel, the dude should have been standing in the background because then they just kind of show up.
Mm.
That's a small nitpick though. That's not a major deal. I really like that design of the head popping out of the chest with the spinal cord. That's a really cool thing. That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, overall, the composition, the camera angles, the clarity on this one's pretty good. I like that you took the same character, who's the guy with the ball gag in his mouth, and drew him from multiple angles. You moved the camera around. Really good. But yeah, yeah, I think in terms of a one-page comic that starts in a place, actions happen, then ends in a place. This is a very solid execution because you have those visual callbacks from the first one to the last one. The only thing that is confusing about this that I will call you out on is that in the last panel, you're trying to do a vignette thing where on the left-hand side of the canvas, it's up at the top of the hole where we're sitting with the goblin, and on the right-hand side, it's what's going on at the bottom of the hole. But because there's no page break there, it looks like me and Dave and a goblin are sitting in front of a bunch of giants that are fucking a guy in the background.
Yep.
So because there's nothing there to show that those are happening in different spaces, it looks like we're just tiny people in front of this massive knife orgy happening in the background. But
and the ass tangent with your hand.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which is
exactly.
unfortunate.
I'm very much holding that guy's ass. Like, look at this. Look at this ass. Look at this lovely ass. But yeah, that's really the only awkward panel. The rest of them are great. I like that it, again, ties first panel to last panel. The only awkward thing is that you're showing what's happening at the top and the bottom. What would have been more effective, just in terms of a critique and how you could have done this, is to do a really weird above angle looking down of the two of us at the edge of the hole with like a 1-point perspective going down the hole with this happening at the bottom and having us talk in speech bubbles like we were looking down watching it happen.
Oh, yeah.
That would have set up the space better and made more sense with what was going on in the comic. But I do appreciate that you tried to do a cool vignette thing. It just doesn't quite work with the clarity in that last shot.
Yeah, I actually had a similar thought just before you said that. All the panels, the way they're laid out, they're kind of laid out to read horizontally. So everything that you're looking at, if you're looking at the composition of everything on a whole, it's got this whole like really big horizontal movement, and the camera angles are pretty much flat on like that. The last panel, if it was something different, like what you said, like even visually, it would be different from all the others. So that would, I guess, would make more impact, and it wouldn't be quite as muddy as it is.
Yeah, exactly. I think that last panel should be something pulled out from the top where you can see the hole, you can see us sitting at the edge of it, you can see the action down on the bottom, and it'll also be funnier that way because it'll be this big empty space with this horrible thing happening, and the speech bubbles will be kind of removed. Like, what are you telling us? Like, But yeah, otherwise really good use of a page. Good job drawing the character from different angles. Love the goblin guy. Good posture on everything. I like that on some of the weird zombie dudes you buckled the knees in together to show that they're kind of wobbly. I like that in the goblin dude in the top, he's very much like leaning forward, like, hyping things up and being excited, and yeah, just good little subtle things in the posture of people to sell their character is a thing you don't often see. So good job on that.
Yeah. Also, the design on this guy is, to say the least, quite interesting. Not sure if it was taken from somewhere, or probably knowing you, Adam, you probably invented that kind of pose, but
yeah.
yeah,
I like it.
a great execution in the creepiness aspect. So
Yeah.
So yeah, good job. Moving on
All
to
right.
Sorrentos.
Yep.
Okay, so we got a woman and a cat warrior and a sleeping dragon. She pushes the cat in, and the dragon wakes up, and the cat fights the dragon. He comes back with the shoes that don't fit him, and he gives them to the girl, and the girl gets the shoes. So easily followable story. We see what's going on in all the panels. The clarity is really good. By far, my favorite panel is the one of the cat inside the thing's mouth with the tongue wrapping around it and stabbing it through the head, and like that's a really, really solid drawing.
Yeah.
Narratively, it really shows what's going on. I like the little X in the thing's eye. That's really cool. Let's see, it's drawn really well. You set up the dragon so that when the eye opens, it's very clear what's going on. Good job drawing that dragon head from multiple angles and having it read as the same creature. That can be really tough when you're trying to do a level of detail that you're going for. Narrative's clear. The only thing about this comic that I would critique is that the average dragons thing that you're going for doesn't quite come across in the narrative. The only thing I can find that really sells the average part is that she says, like, oh, he's level 15 just like you, which is like low-level dragon. Like, I get that. But it's like a big threat. He fights it, he gets in the mouth, he stabs it. It's still a very effective comic. It's just the topic is a little muddled, but that's really the only thing.
Yeah.
Trying to look through this. I like the design of the stuff. I like that everything's very different, but it still fits. Like the girl looks very unique, the cat is very unique, the dragon's very unique, but because they're all drawn kind of the same way, they all work together. I dig the cat dude. I feel like you could probably do a series with the cat dude, and people would be into it. He feels like a character that is in this issue of a comic, not a one-off comic where we're never going to see him again. I feel like this is a character that's been in hundreds of comics I just haven't read yet. So good job designing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Okay.
No, go for it.
I really like the face expressions, especially on the cat. You did it quite well with pretty much every frame. Has a different expression, and it's very powerful. One thing I do to make it more like pop out is to break the frames here and make the claws extend. Not sure if I say that correctly, over the border of the frame.
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably it. I really like this one. So.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything that was said. I think the text is a tiny bit small.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's a lot of space that you had. You could have made it even just a little bit bigger.
This is a real minor thing. Like just because you just said it, I just want to mention it. When he's in the thing's mouth and it goes "yarg," like that feels more natural to the drawing style. So this is real minor, and a lot of people don't consider it. We had this problem when we were doing our Steve book, is that text, like formatted text that's just a font you can get in Photoshop, often really doesn't sit well next to fluid line drawings and stuff that has a lot of personality like this does. It makes the two feel very separate. Like the text is kind of cold and clinical, and it takes away from the drawing. So maybe hand write your text next time, so at least the pen stroke and the text matches the drawings. That way it'll feel more natural and not like so separate. Because again, when he does the Hyarg thing in the mouth, that feels like it belongs there. That the personality of the word matches, and the bubble matches the drawing. So I would suggest, instead of using the circle marquee tool and then doing a stroke and putting text in it, actually just draw your bubbles the same way that you're drawing everything else, and actually write your text, because it's gonna feel like a finished piece of art as opposed to a piece of art with digital text over it.
Yeah, actually, Johnny posted a link to how to do handwritten text for yourself. So You can just
And
You can
make it a
also,
font.
yeah, you can also make your own fonts in Photoshop. It takes a little while, but it's worth doing if you're going to do a lot of comics.
Yeah. So, yeah, in terms of what I really like about this, I think like the characters just feel so well drawn. The gesture of them, the balance of them. It's like I think it's probably the one of the best out of all of them, except maybe the next one.
Mm.
Just like when she's pushing the cat over, it just feels so right. There's a little bit of emotion in that,
Yeah,
and I think it was really successful in those sort of technical issues areas as well. So,
right.
but yeah, for me, the font was probably the biggest thing, and the fact that the dragons thing was a little bit kind of not quite there. But
Yeah, not quite there. Those are, I mean, obviously minor, but
small
again, this is
things.
just
Yeah.
an extra. Small things are what make or break a thing sometimes. So we just want to call everything out.
Yep.
But yeah, good job.
That's all I got.
Zipful Zeus. This one's one of my favorites just because of the personality you got in the faces of everything. I really like that you went for kind of a. This is me reading into it, but I'm assuming your average dragon's idea was almost like a weird sitcom, like the dinosaurs or something, where like these dragons just live in a house and they're like people and they're just like kind of an average everyday blue collar family of dragons. I really love the cat dragon. Really great face, really great personality in there. Yeah, in terms of execution of like how characters are feeling and what they look like, and it's really really well done. Critiques on it: the average dragons thing isn't quite there. I think I understand what you're going for, like I just mentioned, but it's not really incorporated into the story of it. I do like that you tied together the first panel and the last panel with the cat looking kind of pissed and upset, and then it just kind of gives up and gets sleepy and comfortable at the end. I like that little story arc. Yeah, good panel layout, good balance on the page of square panels, wider open panels, zoomed out, zoomed in. All the camera angles are flat, but you're zooming in and out and showing different things, so it doesn't stand out as something that is a problem. Thoughts?
Yeah, one thing we weren't sure is whether it's a young lady or an old one. So
Yeah,
it would be probably best if you clarified it somehow.
because right now it could be like an unpopular teenager dragon girl in school who comes home after getting made fun of, or it could be a middle-aged dragon woman who went on a bad date and came home and hugged her cat. It could be either one. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I basically agreed with everything Dan said. The average dragons, I was thinking about this, and it's more like mundane dragons. It is like that's kind of the feeling I got. So I think in that respect you've kind of done quite well. It feels like a page that's in something bigger, even though it does work as a standalone. Right. What I liked about it is it actually feels like a bigger part of a bigger story.
Yeah, it feels like this was a page out of a book.
Yeah, and it kind of made me want to read, like, okay, well, what else is going on in this kind of hilarious world? And that cat is amazing. I love that cat. So well.
One huge missed opportunity I'm going to call you out on, just because I would have loved to see it, but it's not here, is that you implied there's pictures in the background and you didn't draw the other weird dragon family members in the photos. Like, I want to see the gross dragon dad, or like the funny looking little brother with like the sideways hat, like the skateboarder kid dragon. Like, I want to see like that dumb cat wearing like a dress with a bow in its head that they set up for some horrible photo. Like, show us the family, show us the history of like how silly and dumb this universe is with these average dragons. Like, that's such a good opportunity to put more jokes in the background that establish why this cat hates where it is and stuff. Like, that would have been really cool. But
yeah, that's a brilliant idea. I think that would work really well. Oh,
like,
so like any of the critique that you guys get, hopefully like you'll even integrate it in and make it even more finished and better. So.
I would absolutely fill up those picture frames with that stuff before you put this online, because that little panel where she's kind of squeezing the cat and says, "At least I still have you," and there's that frame right behind them that's empty. If there was a dumb like Walmart photo of that cat wearing a stupid dress with a bow on or something in the background, like forced to look like pretty, like we dressed our cat up and got a portrait done, like that would make that panel work so much better.
Yeah.
Definitely. But
and you could have like if you move that text, you could actually have a series of 3 or 4 images that tell another story within it.
You could show the whole dragon family over there.
Yep. No, that's awesome.
I'm not sure what those circles are behind the I Still Have You. Are they supposed to be like decorative plates or something?
Probably.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the one, because they're in the panel under that too, and she says, "I love you," and you see these marqueed out circles, but unlike everything else in the canvas, they don't have a line around them. They're just flat shapes, which is confusing. If they're decorative plates, I would recommend building the universe out even more to make it funnier, where they're like commemorative and there's some dragon politician or something on it, like Dragon Abraham Lincoln, anything. Just some dumb collectible plate that a person, if that's what they're supposed to be, that a person in this weird average dragons universe would get. Or cat plates, other dragon cats that aren't this one. Maybe they collect cat stuff. That could be funny. There's a lot of
house
cool stuff
mottos.
Yeah, there you go.
House mottos.
Definitely. Weird family photo, coat of arms, could be anything.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Next up is Eliana.
Eliana, you did a great job with this one. In terms of the webcomic thing, for comics that will get shared around, that people will enjoy sharing and looking at, this one is probably the most effective out of the group. This feels like something I could have already seen on Tumblr that got a bunch of reblogs and notes and stuff. Really good. There's some minor things with the layout you could do to make it more effective, but overall, in terms of tying the first panel into the last panel and telling a story very effectively in one page that has a message, this is extremely well executed. So good job. It's just average, and you see the dragons flying around, and then we hard cut to a school, and the kid's not having a great time. People are making fun of him. And then he's thinking about, even if he was just an average dragon, that would be good enough, because, you don't need to be the best thing. Even that would be better. Cool message, cool story, cool callback from the first panel to the last panel to show that he's been thinking it. I love the thought bubbles curling up the side. That's a cool compositional thing. In terms of stuff that would help this, that first panel that has the dragon on the side and then the one flying over there, there's a weird empty space between the two that, you could have taken the dragon and moved it down and over in the side to kind of fill that space up and show more of it. You could have made the dragon that's flying and breathing fire a little bit bigger so the wings filled up that space a little more. That's really the only big thing technically that I would fix with this, is just there's too much empty canvas in that top panel. Just make the wings bigger, or move the dragon over a little bit or something so it doesn't feel awkward. The other thing I would do is make the text a little clearer.
Yeah.
This is something where making a font in Photoshop might help. You can totally do it by hand, because like the already and the Ian school time, those are fine. It's hard to read what the students are saying because they're kind of forced in. And it's a little hard to read the "if I could just be a dragon," because the ink gets a little close there and it starts to bleed into itself. Just for the clarity of the narrative, you want to make sure that the text minimizes well, because stuff's going to get read on phones. That's the thing you got to keep in mind, is 90% of webcomics are read on phones now. So if you can't read it on a phone screen, it causes a problem. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you covered it all. Pretty much.
Sorry.
I thought I had the legibility with the fonts down. I thought I was going to get that, but not. You got it in the end. So.
I'm so sorry. I gotta shut my mouth.
I know. Just be a little bit more average.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So sorry.
Damn. The thing I really liked about this was that self-contained story. It was really clear what's going on in that, and the thought bubble circling back is just so cool.
Yeah.
I think that works really well because it's kind of like this metaphor for the cycle of going through this day over and over, and the bullying and the horrible kind of nature of it. And she's in this dream, so I really like that part of it. Yeah, technically, I think mostly it's just the fonts. Like you've actually got the main character quite recognizable between panels.
Good job with that.
Potentially the one with the lots of desks. I mean, I think he's in the top left, probably.
Yeah, I think so. Which is a little weird because the people making fun of him are so far away. Like, they could maybe be pointing at him, or people that are closer to him could be leaning over and talking to those people in the back. That could be sold a little bit more, because we can't really see the clothing in detail. So, like, them making fun of it might not be enough.
Exactly, and I actually had the thought that everyone could be in one corner, like all the popular kids are all in one corner, and he's on his own in the middle thing, surrounded by no one. And so that would kind of that would make that composition of that panel a little bit stronger.
Definitely. And the only other thing in that top panel, maybe like a fun little fantasy castle or something in that town, or a little wall around it, or, just fun stuff to fill that top panel up with, because there's a lot of empty space there. And if the idea is that he's daydreaming about being a dragon in this fantasy world and how much better that would be, then, really sell the fun, playful fantasy world.
Yep. But that's pretty much all I got.
Good stuff. Good head studies and stuff down below, and
Oh, yep.
Okay.
So, next.
Yeah.
Here's probability game. And it is a He-Man. Congrats on going for the bowl cut. I'm very, very happy you did that. Very good. Okay, so you got the guy, he says, "You wander the black woods intent on seeking your fortune, when fortune brings a beast most foul." And then he says, "My trusty bow will make quick work of the creature." And he's got the 3 arrows and a really, really dumb, awesome fantasy face. Good job with that. But your shafts fly wide, and the monster approaches, malice in its eyes. "No matter, I will smite this, I'll spawn with my mighty blade." And then, he drops it, and he says, "Instead you trip on your feet, sprawling for the creature." And then he's prone on the ground, and his pants fall down, and he yells, "Fucking dice." And that's your lead-in to the reveal, which is good that you did that, where you break the universe that the comic's in one panel before the joke. That's very smart. Very smart. So it's not so sudden. And then it cuts, and I love that you did a totally different art style. And I love that the art style you chose was really simple and dumb and kind of flat, because that sets up the contrast of normal, mundane life, which these two people are in playing a game, and the high fantasy amazingness that looks so much cooler in your head. Like, really, really awesome juxtaposition there. Really enjoy it. I really like that you made the speech bubbles the different colors so that you know who the two people are in the universe of the fantasy thing. Really, really cool.
I didn't even catch that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Really cool way of identifying that guy was definitely the He-Man dude. And he's got the same color hair. He's got, the overalls and the green, are the same color of the chainmail and the green cloak.
Shit.
The same thing with the Dungeon Master dude. The orc has, the orange stuff that matches his shirt and his hair. And, really smart. Really, really smart to make a fantasy version of that guy with the blonde hair that actually has the same color palette. Really, really cool way of tying them together. Well drawn, well executed. I think the only critique I have on this one in terms of execution is that the silhouette of the goblin in the fourth to last, third to last panel, whatever it is, when he says, "No matter, I will smite this hellspawn with my mighty blade," that silhouette doesn't quite work. You can sort of tell what it is because of the ear, but I think because it's the only silhouette in the entire thing, even the leg at the bottom in the foreground when he's prone and he's got his pants down isn't solid black. You can see the lines drawn up where the muscles are. I think that silhouette doesn't work. I think it would have been better if you made it the same tone as that leg in the bottom panel, and you actually drew, the back of the shoulders and the back of the head and stuff, and where the ear connected. Because having a big solid black shape that blends into the panel breaks feels weird because, like, the panel breaks are black and it sort of bleeds into that shape and makes one big strange shape. So before you put this online and in your portfolio, I would go in, make the silhouette that not black but dark color, and actually draw the details of the character so it's a little more recognizable. But yeah, otherwise, I think this is really, really well executed. Great angles, great action, reaction shots, really great character theming with the color palettes tying them to these two people. Really good timing where you have the fucking dice thing break the universe right before the reveal of the different art style. Again, this feels like one issue of an online series that could have hundreds of issues where these two people play a campaign and, their world looks different than the world of that. And, yeah, really, really solid execution on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was hoping Dan won't catch the similarities between the kids and characters, but you just covered it all again.
I'm sorry.
I want to just shine a little, but yeah.
I also really like the maybe the only thing. Maybe the only thing it doesn't matter because the characters are the colors. I really like that you put a little figure of that goblin, and he even has like the club in his hand and the horns on the helmet on the table. Yeah. They're playing with the miniatures. That's really cool. I was going to say you could make it the color of that goblin in the comic, but I realized that both of them are supposed to be that kind of like gray plastic that pieces often are, so that works. That's fine. That was a nitpick.
Yeah. And my only, and this is a really, really small thing. I was going to talk about the silhouette thing, but in that fourth panel with the arrows and the goblin, I think there's a little bit of there's like tangents and a little bit of legibility issue between those two arrows and the goblin itself. Like it's not.
Terrible, yeah. Okay, so
but it feels messy in there.
Yeah, there are a couple tangents in there. It's sharing an edge with the top of the pinky finger. The ends of the arrows with the feathering and the ends of the shaft are lining up almost perfectly with the edges of the ear and the edges of the muscle in the neck. Yep. They're not cropping over. I would have maybe made the arrows a little brighter and had those motion lines that are on them continue over or something so you can see that they're moving through it. But yeah, there are some shared edges in that panel.
Yeah, I definitely think the motion lines are adding a little bit of that sort of it's muddying up the silhouette as well of the arrows. So just a bit more overlap with those, I think, would have worked well. But
I would recommend fix that panel, fix the solid black silhouette panel, and then throw this on Imgur and like Reddit and see how it does, because I think you'll find it's pretty well done, and I think a lot of people will like it.
Yeah, and the other thing that's great about this is it's so relatable.
Yeah,
like anyone who's played D&D, and I haven't, but I get it. And that final line, that final goblin smiles as he begins to undo his own, is just the funniest thing.
Yeah, it's really great.
It's awesome. It just made me laugh out loud. So,
great job.
Yeah, great job.
Dan, do you actually think that it will work better as a single column scrolling as he planned to actually do this? Because it's just.
Oh, you mean completely vertical?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Imgur that would probably be, or Imgur, I never know which one it is. That would probably be better because it makes that reveal something you don't see until the very end. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go totally vertical, one panel under another, under another, under another for Imgur, that would probably be the best way to show it, because then you're scrolling and you scroll to the punchline. It does work in this format, but for online specifically, absolutely make it one vertical strip. That will help a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Yes, great job. And awesome. Now to Gianni Novice.
Yeah.
What's up?
Here.
So, Gianni, you get massive credit for definitely being the most ambitious in terms of pretty much all the entries. The stuff you decided to do to fit panels in, to break edges, to get as much information into the one page as possible. The drawing, the execution, the camera angles, the shots, the 3D of the rooms, the actions. You tried to do the most out of anybody. So huge ups for that. So anyway, you got the dog. Dog's running around. I like that you went for the kind of like black and white print, kind of manga style with this. This is really cool. Expense maintain. Role model. I love that judge dog. He's probably my favorite part of this, is that judge dog with that very parliamentary wig. Really cool. That last panel, well, not last panel, but second to last with the room and the daddy thing. Really well done. Really great drawing of the bugged out eyes and the hand in the foreground, and that kind of fisheye effect on the room where it's warped. You actually did the thing we mentioned in the other comic where you put pictures of the characters on the wall, so you can see that it's a family and that it sets up a little more context. So good job with that. It's really cool. Yeah, really awesome layout. Really cool way of finding ways to break panels and not just use flat diagonals. And it almost has this cool like shattered glass effect when you look at how you did all these crazy triangles and things, but it's still legible. I would say there's so much information that it does get a tiny bit confusing. It's not a huge problem, but going forward, if you do more comics like this, I would say try to find more legible ways to get the information across, because that first panel works really well. But the first time I read it, I missed that diagonal line that says, however, Max was troubled. It kind of blended into that triangle, and I moved past it. Little things like that. Every single frame is so full of information, which is great because you're really, really forcing yourself to make the most out of the one-page format. But as a result, it's hard to see everything the first time you go through it because there's so much, and it almost becomes like a busy issue. Like there's so much going on, you kind of just see the things that pop out, and then you miss the things that might be behind them. So I would say definitely the things to keep going forward that work super well in this are your camera angles, your characters. Character drawings are great. Your use of space and kind of showing the 3D area of a room, the angles, the fisheye effect in that room. Those things are all awesome. Things to work on, probably panel layout, just for terms of readability. Because right now, you can find the right way to read this, but the first time you go through it, it's a little bit jumbled. Yeah, that's my opinion on that, though. Really great job. Tons of effort went into this. I mean, you can tell it's really, really great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I also just have to say, even though it's been said, the amount of work that you put into this and effort that you went to, and I you did it traditionally, for the most part as well. Really amazing job on it. And I know that with Johnny, he wants to do comics, so he's putting in the time and the effort, and it's kind of paying off. I love that there's such a condensed story in that page, but it spans quite a lot of time as well. And I mean, it's basically an entire lifetime, but it doesn't feel like he's missed some spots, or I think he's hit the right spots for the panel. So he's actually done really well on that. For me, the final panel, like I guess the idea that his son also likes donuts, so potentially, there's this implication that the cycle could just continue. It's a really small thing, but it confused me a little bit the first time, because I was like, was the story about Max Jr. or,
Yeah, you kind of, because the only thing that separates the two characters is that one of them has the black spot around their eye.
Yeah.
At first, when you read through it, it's hard to tell that that's a different character and that it's indeed like the son. I do like that you had the donut thing in the first panel and the last panel tie it together. Again, all this kind of organized chaos in the middle with the little bookends of the donut and then the donut. Really good way to lay it out. Super solid. The only thing I think that could have worked better is if the father clearly looked a little different than the son, because right now it's just that one thing. And the reason that one thing is kind of an issue in the first panel is because the black around the eye is cropping the border, and it's on top of a black ear and then a black background, so you almost don't see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree. A little more clarity just to make sure that we know that this is in fact the son or whatever.
And I think another small change to text would make it clearer. So it's always been in the past, well, kind of the past tense. So I think saying Max Jr. loves donuts kind of brings it into the present. So it's like, oh, this is now. So that could also slowly, like, add just a little bit more to that.
Unless the intention is for us to assume that Max Jr. is also already dead.
Oh, that could be.
In which case, that's super dark. But
it could be for sure.
That might have been the intention. In which case, good job with that.
Yeah, at least I think it implies that the circle of life will continue.
Yeah,
like that, so.
It at least implies that he's doomed. You know what I mean?
The final message is one of hope, right? So
no.
I
don't know.
I'm not so sure.
That's sort of.
It might be. It might not be.
We have okay, so it's not saying that we can definitely do it. It's like we could potentially.
By the way, huge props for making donuts and other food this dark and this poignant. Great.
Yeah.
You see, this is what I love is that you took the silliest title and you made something very serious, but you set it in this kind of fantastical, fun dog world, and like that juxtaposition of silly things and serious things is working really, really well in this. So, like, good job taking that risk. It definitely paid off.
Yeah. One other minor thing is I don't know if you guys have an issue with this, but the choice of the types of halftone and tone patterns, like the dots versus the more hatched stuff, it's especially in that second to last panel, I just felt there was a little bit too much variation in them, or they weren't used consistently sometimes. So I don't know if you guys think that's an issue, or you feel it gels well.
I'm not sure.
What specifically? The pattern?
Yeah, so like the hatching in that second to last panel, which is very different from
I would say it gets a little busy. One thing about it that is throwing me off is that sound wave shaped thing in the background.
Yeah.
I feel like, am I missing something? Was that supposed to be like a pulse monitor?
That would have been cool. I don't think it was meant to be that though, because if we could see that pattern going off to flatline, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's what I like. Basically what I'm getting at is, if that isn't supposed to be a pulse monitor, what is it, and why is it there? Because it kind of cuts through the middle of the room. It doesn't wrap the walls geometrically, so it's supposed to be a design thing that's just kind of there. If it was supposed to be like a flatline pulse thing, that would make sense. But right now, it's very clearly like a sound wave. It's like a sine thing, so I'm not sure why that's there and what purpose it's serving. That might be part of the thing you just mentioned about the hatching in the background pattern, is that's sort of unnecessarily busying it up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's kind of a small thing, but it is something.
Yeah, cool little things you did that you're learning, like in the background, the University of Donuts and whatever. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I like that you didn't draw lines around the words. You just hatched around them and let them be white with no real border. Really good way of that's like the Disney thing where they tried not to put solid lines in the background so that the characters with lines in the foreground pop off. Like, good lesson there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay.
It's supposed to be the kid's voice distressed. Okay. That doesn't quite make sense. I see what you're going for with the sound wave and the peaking and the yelling, but it's such a random design element that doesn't come in anywhere else in the comic that having a sound wave in the background almost doesn't make sense. Cool idea trying it and getting it in there. I don't think for most readers that's what they're going to see it as. Just because it's kind of random and it doesn't fit the rest of the comic. But I would say if you put this online, just get rid of that one thing. and just have the background be that nicely rendered background, and that'd be fine.
Or if you do want to do that sort of pulse monitor thing going to flatline in a very bold way, that would be cool too.
It's definitely more recognizable than a sound wave, because sound waves are kind of chaotic and all over the place. So a pulse thing is instantly recognizable as a heartbeat.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Great stuff. Right, we're kind of like halfway.
Oh god.
So
takes too long.
Yeah, maybe we'll finish in the morning for me. So
there you go. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, this is awesome.
It's great.
This is awesome. I'm sure everyone's enjoying it. So yeah, let's just move on. So John.
Now we got another dark one right after that last dark one.
Yeah.
So this one is John. I believe it's down the hatch. So yeah, I get the drinking and the making fun of and the unhappy at the job. See, this is funny. Is at first I thought this was donuts and other food. See, this is the thing, is because I saw the coffee shop and I was like, oh my god, this is the darkest donuts and other food ever. But I was like, oh, okay, it's down the hatch because that first panel. I get it now. But yeah, and then the F's and then the thing and then this and that. I really love the panel with the home sweet home and the letters falling off it. That's super effective. Really, really good little thing to put in there. But yeah. And I'm trying to... What happens exactly?
Yeah, that's the problem. Not sure.
That's the thing is, that's the one thing I'm not clear on.
I've got a theory on this. So John, if he's in here, can prove me wrong.
Does the guy,
it took a while of thinking.
Does the guy shield the woman?
I think so. Her ex or whoever that is, right, in that panel where he's pointing at her forehead in a really loving way, is the guy with the gun and is getting some sort of revenge because she found, her true love or something like that. That's the way I read it. So he gets into hospital because her ex, who's a jealous, abusive asshole, basically either kills him or, puts him in the hospital.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's what I thought.
I read this totally differently. Hold on, yeah, I'm gonna reread this now. Hold on.
So I wasn't clear.
There's nothing to read, but okay.
Who is pulling the gun?
Exactly.
I thought the girl in the beginning drinking the bottle was pulling the gun the first time I read it. Okay. There we go. Yeah.
Because I think she left the dude. I'm also a little bit confused about so there's this sort of silhouette beating that's going on. I don't know whether she's the one getting beat or she's the one kind of, whose face is facing us. But then who is it in?
Because she's got, it implies that she has dark hair in that panel, so you can't tell if it's the blonde girl or not.
So who is that dark girl, right? It's like, okay.
Yeah, so I guess the thing that makes the most sense, and again, this is a clarity issue. This is what we were talking about earlier. This is very well drawn. It has some very effective panels, really solid compositions. The one of her in the coffee shop is great. The people pointing and laughing, great. The one with the abuse is great. The Home Sweet Home is probably my favorite. Super effective panel. The one with the kind of Polaroid shots of the dude on life support trailing back to her drinking the bottle, also great. Yeah.
One thing is that this guy's hair is different than this one, so maybe.
So the first panel is actually the last panel because she's drinking at the bar and she's got that bottle.
Yeah.
So good job tying that together. So it starts at the ending, and then she's remembering high school sucked. She had a job she didn't like. High school got worse. There was some kind of abuse going on, maybe with her parents, or maybe that's her daughter, and she's the one getting hit in the background. Then this guy who's clearly a dick, either it's her dad and he's an asshole, or she's in a bad relationship. And then she leaves home, meets a nice guy that she's in love with, and then either the dad or the ex-boyfriend wants to kill the guy, but then they hug each other. See, that's the thing that...
So it reads right to left there.
It reads
It
right to
goes from,
left.
yeah, it goes from the leaves going down to that panel of My First Love, and then
Oh, I see. I didn't even catch that because everything up until that was left to right.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. Sure. Okay. Okay, yeah. So it swoops down with the leaves to My First Love, and then them hugging, and then the guy gets shot, and then those Polaroids move over to that.
that's it.
Okay, that was the clarity thing.
It took me a while to figure it out.
At first pass, because the first two lines read left to right, you assume the rest of it is going to read left to right. That was where the clarity problem was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. So, well executed, good use of story. It shows really well, really good tying the first panel to the last panel. Very effective use of the title down the hatch. Really great shots, very good drawing, very good balance of white and black to make the pages read and not be too busy. Literally the only thing I would suggest is if you're going to go left to right, keep going left to right. And if you're going to do a thing where suddenly it goes right to left, make it a little more obvious that that's happening instead of just the leaves. Like, either make more leaves blowing out of those trees and really force the eye to come in with like a real swoop to the right and then start going left, or have a character acting out something that points us in that direction, or overlap the panels that way or something to really get us to come in, because the first 2 or 3 times I read it, I went left to right on every line of it. But yeah, once you figure it out, it's really cool what you did. I just want it to be more obvious that it switches to right to left so people don't get confused on it, because this is very well executed.
Mm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
no
love
dialogues, and it's still readable. So.
Oh yeah. We mentioned that before we did the stream. This is one of the only ones that has no words in it. It might be the only one that has no words in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, except for like, First Love and Home Sweet Home, but no speech bubbles is what we're saying. And yet you still managed to show what was, even though we read it out of order the first time, we still basically knew what was going on. And to do that without any kind of speech and just relying on your drawing and compositional ability is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the simplistic, like, it's so effective style of the, it just looked complete. It was really great, drawn well. So yeah, awesome.
This was Death and Taxes?
No. I was just joking on the chat.
Okay, God, I was like, oh shit. Okay, we got to go back. I thought this was down the hatch. I think it's down the hatch.
Yeah, I think so. It is.
It might be donuts and other food.
No, it's definitely down the hatch. I saw his whip thread. It's totally.
If the guy at the end dies and comes back to life, it could be Corpse Wrestler.
Yeah, the next episode maybe.
Executions. No, but seriously, I can't state it enough. You did a comic that reads really well. It's drawn super clearly. You know what's going on. The only thing is that little compositional flip of left to right, right to left. But you made a comic without any spoken word that we can still understand what's going on, and that is hugely hard to do. So really, really good job on that.
Yep. All right, so the next one, Twilight Explode, Gunnar is in the chat, and he's saying, "Mine's next. Kick my ass, please."
Got it. So this is Gunnar's?
Yeah.
New York City, 2021 AD.
Newport
First
City.
off, oh God, Newport City. I didn't even read that right. God damn it.
Look at the bun stuffers, the subtitle. Literally the worst.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this reads clearly. Going through it, I love the design of your burglar. Really good. Really good getting punched face. I like your corpulent wiener design. He's really cool. I like the foreshortening where he's real big. I like that you made him one of those gross hot dogs that's kind of square. One of those weird ones that has like hot dogs that have like corners are fucking gross, but like I've seen those before too. So good job. The only criticism I have on this is that your panels tend to be pretty empty. And with something that's going to minimize down to, oops, sorry if I just hit my mic. With something that's going to minimize potentially down to phone size, to have that much extra canvas space. Like, for example, the first panel works well because the point is that foreshortened bun stuffers thing. The second panel, though, is this big wide shot, and it's really zoomed out, and that guy is standing there, and he's real tiny, and the dude in the background's even smaller. What probably would have been more effective is to have the dude who owns the bun stuffers thing way up close in the foreground, like in like a Spider-Man comic, going like, "Help! That guy grabbed my wiener!" Like, and really pointing behind him with like a foreshortened finger, and have his his hand up to his mouth like he's yelling in the foreground, like he's literally right in front of us going "Help!" with the guy behind him. The panel of the punching, I think, would have been more effective if you kind of foreshortened the arm, like we were potentially the ones punching him, like it's coming out of frame to hit the guy and make the guy bigger, just so it fills up that empty space where you've got the light gradient a little bit more. The panel after that where the guy's falling, the one thing about that panel that's a little weird is that it looks like he's diving for the hot dog. It looks like someone threw a hot dog and he went no, and he's jumping to get it, like he's trying to save the hot dog. It doesn't look like he got punched in the face, because if you look at where he is when the guy punches him, and then you look at the posture of him falling, it looks like he's diving out of the air in the other one, like he jumped off a diving board or off a ledge or something. It should have been a reaction from where the fist hit him, where he's standing up and falling over onto the side or kicked up off the ground. But the posture he's in when he gets punched and the posture of him falling are so totally different that they don't read as a reaction of him getting punched. It reads like he's trying to save that hot dog. But anyway, the one after that of him on the ground, that is effective. That one works because it looks like he's in pain and he's kind of getting up. And then the reveal shot of the corpulent wiener, great. Again, with the canvas thing, there's a lot of empty space in the background. I think what you could have done to tie it into the beginning is show the dude's little hot dog stand in the background with him, like, clapping his hands or yelling like, "Thank you, corpulent wiener," or like, something like that, or like, the police officers back there with the guy going, "You've done it again, corpulent wiener. You've saved the day." Like, one of those things. Maybe some onlookers in the background who are all clapping and holding up their babies. The corpulent wiener saved the day again. But that's really the only thing, is that it feels a little bit empty, and having that guy back there with the bun stuffers thing could have been really funny as like a callback, like, "You saved the day again." It would have felt more like, because you're going for like that classic superhero reveal at the end where it's like he's this guy. So having more of those callbacks, like the Commissioner Gordon type character, or like the Dick Tracy cops going like, you're the best, corpulent wiener. What could we do without you?" Like, those would all be funny. But great puns in this. You mustered up the courage to steal in this. I always catch up. Relished it. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. I would have added more things to the character's design, because he has the ketchup thing. I would have added a mustard thing, maybe a relish thing too. But again, really good design. The big things are just posture of the drawings of the characters, like, the getting punched to the falling over from the punch. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about, where it doesn't look like the second panel's reacting to the first. It looks like he's diving after a hot dog after getting punched. And then, filling up the empty space. And don't be afraid to zoom in, because, again, even in the bottom panel, we're assuming that the corpulent wiener, just based on how you drew it, is behind the burglar, and the burglar is very tiny. He could have very easily been free transformed up, and his head could have even been overlapping where the corpulent wiener's scarf is or something. Like, he could be much bigger. He could be in the super foreground. Like, we're laying on the ground looking up at that guy, and the corpulent wiener's behind him. Right now, his face is almost the same size as the corpulent wiener's face, even though the corpulent wiener's supposed to be number one behind him and number two like 10 feet tall. So just think about sizing stuff to fill up the canvas a bit more. It's a common problem a lot of people have, where they want to show everything in the panel, so they zoom out to accommodate. But things like the dude yelling "help" being really close to us and pointing behind him, and things like that thief being really in the super foreground, so we can see, like, the blood coming out of his mouth and the broken teeth from where he got punched and the black eye or something, and, like, really show the damage that the corpulent wiener did by hitting him. That those are little things that not only fill up the space better, but help sell the story more and have a little more fun with it. So that's basically my feedback.
Okay.
I'm gonna add absolutely nothing to that because again, maybe actually I'll add one thing. The first panels, the text, the like it's a little bit small,
Sure.
and a bit hard to read. So it's, it gets better, but I think that legibility might help. Everything to do with panels that Dan suggested. I think is
one thing is that in the last one the perspective is not working because you have pretty flat one on the shoes, and the skyscrapers are in a completely different 3-point or 4-point perspective. So
it's okay to, like, if you had more fun with that last panel and really sold it as like a fantastical, like, Superman Metropolis in the 30s city with, like, fun buildings and people with, like, fedoras and dresses cheering in the back, like, you could get away with it a little more if it was supposed to be like kind of whimsical and superhero-y. The fact that it's very just rectangular skyscraper buildings and there's not really anything on the street level or whatever makes the buildings stand out even more because they're the only thing back there, which makes the perspective that much more of an issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good job. I would say make those edits if you want to put this in your portfolio. Size up the dude on the bottom, show us the damage from getting punched. Bring that dude in the bun stuffers thing up to be like, yelling at us, "Help! That man grabbed my wiener!" Like pointing behind to the dude. Like, otherwise, good stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, the other with the guy in the last panel. I know you've drawn the mustache in there, but it almost looks like it's just his top lip. So I would
I didn't catch that. He actually doesn't look like the same burglar. The burglar the burglar in the getting punched panel looks like a kind of a chubby, funny dude, and the one on the bottom looks like a mime who would be like doing like the invisible box thing.
Yeah. He looks like younger as well. So
yeah, he looks thinner. He looks younger. So I think like making him
the winner.
Yeah, keeping him as like the chubby guy in the getting punched panel would probably be funnier. Like, have some of that white belly poking out under the striped shirt. The kind of double chin thing of him looking down at the ground with like the damage, like the bleeding lip and the black eye and whatever. That'll be a lot funnier.
Yeah. Alrighty. Should we carry on?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sorry this is taking so long, everybody.
No, it's great.
Dan.
It's great.
No, this is awesome.
Time is it where you guys are?
What's that?
What time is it where you guys are?
It's like 10 in the morning. So it's
okay.
For me, it's past midnight. So.
Shit. Okay,
no problem.
Okay, so now we've got down the hatch. We've got this cool space gas station, Helios Gas, with like a little coffee shop diner thing inside, 7-Eleven, Space 7-Eleven, convenience store. And we've got the boom, blah, 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 boom, blah, blah, and then the right off the bat, because we already mentioned it, the text. If you had done your own text for this, instead of like, free transforming the where it's a bunch of perfect A's that are foreshortened, it would have been a little bit better. But yeah, let's see. And then the whoosh, and then the monster coming in, and then this guy comes in and says, I was about to, tape the memo. And then, good thing they didn't employ you last week, an anti-rating party lizardman attack. You should have seen it, the way they flew through the hatch. Hilarious. Welcome to the job, by the way. And then the reveal is the guy. So we can tell what's going on. Good setting, cool idea for down the hatch, cool setup. The one thing that we all kind of missed when we were talking about these before is that in that third panel down on the left, he presses the button that says click. And I think the reason we missed it is two things. Number one, it's really zoomed out, so you don't really see the button. It's kind of hidden behind the stuff he's carrying. And number two, there's so much text on there that the click doesn't jump out because there's the sigh, blah, 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 blah. I think if you minimized the text that was there and got rid of a few of those, Or actually, what I would do is emphasize it by adding another panel in the middle where it's just a zoom in on the finger hitting the button and having it say click, so we are forced to see that he hit something, and then that sucks the stuff out and the whoosh and all that. Again, I think less text in the whoosh panel and more shots of things getting sucked out instead. Showing more things getting sucked out as opposed to filling it with text to be more effective. But yeah, we absolutely want a reaction shot emphasizing him clicking that button, because without it, it's very easily missable. But let's see.
Yeah, one thing I would like to mention, because it's actually hard to discern these two guys. The only thing they have in difference is the hat. So you could probably make a different uniform for the employer. So
yeah, I like that you went and made them kind of these sort of 70s, almost like Russian cosmonaut looking dudes. That's really cool, but I totally agree that aside from the hats they're wearing, they're the same character pretty much. So you could make them a little bit more different, recognizable, etc. But yeah, divide up the character designs so you can tell the two dudes are different dudes a little bit more. I would say less text in general. There's text bubbles everywhere on this thing, and all it's kind of doing is just filling up space without like a real purpose. And it's actually making it more confusing because the human eye naturally identifies words as words because we recognize the symbol in them. So if you fill something with words, the eye is automatically going to jump all over the place looking at all the different words, and that's not what you want. You want the words to either serve a narrative purpose or to serve a focal point purpose in the composition where you get drawn to them. But by filling the whole page with words, it makes it very confusing. As a result, the easiest panel to look at is the establishing panel, where it's just the Helios gas.
I have a suggestion for the text, because he's trying to make it, imply that there's a lot of sound going on and stuff. You could actually just do one long bubble of, blur, boom, whatever, going across the entire thing and actually getting cut off by the panel itself, just in one line. Because you see that a lot in like manga and other stuff. They just have this huge long line.
Yeah,
and that's
you could
just
also
one object.
You could also not give them bubbles. Like in Marvel Comics or something, if a motorcycle goes by and it goes vroom, it doesn't have a bubble around it usually. It's usually just text with a color.
Yeah. So
that's another thing is the words are even more noticeable and stand out even more because they're on that blank background. So even if especially the one with the ghost demon space creature thing getting sucked out the thing, that would be way more effective if those weren't bubbles and they were in fact just words getting pulled back in that 1 point perspective. Like even the words are getting sucked out of that thing, just like the monster, because it will force the eye back. It won't make it. You're already kind of doing that by free transforming them towards it. I would actually make them going backward in the space, implying that the sound is being sucked out too. And I would take the speech bubbles off behind them just so they sit better. But again, cool idea for a story for Down the Hatch. Cool idea for the characters. Cool execution. The only things that are confusing it are that we kind of don't see the guy hit the button, so it gets a little confusing, and that there's way too many words. That's basically it. If you can clean those two things up, this will read very nicely.
And one last thing about the words is, especially on the last two panels, is I don't even know if there's. I think it's the same fonts, but the differences in the font sizes are confusing for me. So
and then that fuck panel where it's like written like you wrote with the stylus fuck, and it's on a black bubble.
Right.
I don't understand what the intention of that was to end it. It's the only black bubble. It's the only white text. You almost can't see the little line coming out of his mouth that he's saying it. It almost just looks like he's wearing a big necklace that says "fuck."
Yeah,
maybe it's his name.
But again, these are all just feedback. Doing this kind of thing is tough. So again, don't take it to heart too much. Just fix those things, it'll read a lot better. But yeah, cool idea for Down the Hatch. Really, really interesting use of the title. I love the idea of it being like space ghost monsters getting sucked out of a hatch.
Yep.
Okay.
Citro.
That's all I got.
Citro, congratulations on probably the best designed page. This is the simplest, most effective use of panels probably of anyone in the contest. So basically you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels. Incredibly well drawn. You focused on the personality of your line drawing. You didn't overcomplicate it with rendering or colors. You made sure that reading it vertically, it was entertaining and that each panel was slightly different and there were overlapping elements like the spit and stuff or the speech bubbles breaking the edge of the canvas. Really active, really interesting, really pleasing to the eye. Perfect amount of, symmetry and asymmetry. Again, some things overlap, some things don't. There's a hierarchy of detail. Really well drawn cartoon stuff with the stretching of the faces and the exaggeration. Super well executed page. You're obviously very good at narrative storytelling. The only thing with this, and again, this is the weird spectrum that everything falls on between narrative ability and rendering ability. Things are either super well drawn, but you can't tell quite what's going on, or you know exactly what's going on, but the technical drawing ability isn't quite where it should be. The perfect execution of the idea would be somewhere in the middle, where it's drawn super clearly and super well, and you know exactly what's going on. The only weird thing about this one is that the corpse wrestler idea, which I think is the one you're going for because it says you hit like a corpse, doesn't make sense unless you're somebody doing this contest and you know that one of the topics is corpse wrestler. That's really the only thing, is that joke is a joke for us, the community, who already knows that corpse wrestler is a topic and that you've chosen corpse wrestler. Out of context, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think this one is my favorite in terms of the drawing style.
Yeah.
And the paneling, and even the coloring, like that two-tone, color. It just works so damn well. The facial expressions are amazing. The way he's pushing on the guy's nose, you're expressing so much with the drawing. That it's really endearing. I really love it.
Yeah.
But for me, it is definitely the sort of lack of. I mean, it's kind of like a little funny excerpt, and the charm of the drawing and the layout is done so well that it kind of carries across, but it does fall flat on the story side of it. So
right.
It's that's the main problem with it. I mean, if there was. I know this was his second or third attempt. Actually, he was doing the Corpulent Wiener. But
really?
He also had a bit of problem with the story in that one too. So for my feedback would be, look, you're doing amazing with the artwork. Just nail the story.
Yeah, which is tough. Which is
hard. Yeah, exactly.
Most people are on one of the extremes of that spectrum I just mentioned in terms of story versus drawing ability, and it's very hard to think the other way because they're so separate, and we don't usually do both of those, doing concept art, illustration-y type stuff. Yeah. But yeah, that's the weird thing about this one, is it's the most visually pleasing in terms of page layout. It's probably the best drawn technically in terms of your ability to cartoon the characters and exaggerate the features, and the panels of them getting punched and the twisted necks and the really exaggerated faces is so good, and it's so well done. The only thing is that last panel, making it the corpse wrestler thing, doesn't quite work. If you had used this style and done zombie luchadors or something and just done something that was corpse wrestler themed, it would have been perfect. You know what I mean? Because you can draw. We know you can draw. We know you can lay out the panels based on this. It's super well done. Literally the only thing wrong is the theming. But there you go. Super good job regardless.
That's it. Piotr, did you have anything?
No, I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
All right. Let's go, Smur.
getting through it. It's going to be like
We're getting there.
2 or 3 hour video. I'm so sorry. How long do these usually go?
Like an hour?
Well, it depends because the first one was pretty quick, I guess. That's good.
But actually, we normally just do the announcements and maybe talk about some honorable mentions, and then we do another 1 hour and a half long stream of critiques for everyone.
Right.
So we're actually combining the two this time, which is great.
Yeah.
So
probably the best critique stream so far. So.
Oh, that's good. Sorry it's taking so long. Let's see. Okay, so Average Dragons, Smur. What's up, Smur? Okay. So, get the Cowboys, get the look over the shoulder, get that cool shot with the horse in the foreground. I'm just going to kind of crit this one as I go, because I already looked at this a couple times. Right off the bat, in terms of panel breaks, I would have liked if you did what you did in that second down on the left panel where the horse's head breaks the frame. I would have liked to see that in the top right if you foreshortened it a little more so it didn't come so far out. Having the horse's head just kind of amputated there when the guy's head crops at the top feels kind of weird. But yeah, let's see. And then the horse is running, and the thud, 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 and they take the map, and then looking at it. And then we get revealed that it's a prison, and the guy is playing a tabletop game, and cop hits him and takes the dice because you can't have dice in there. Good reveal, kind of like the one with the bowl cut He-Man looking dude earlier, where it's in one universe and then it's in a different universe. Good execution, good story, good payoff at the end. D&D thing on the paper is good. Here's the weird thing. Your drawings and your compositions in the frames are actually pretty good. The thing that's throwing it off is the kind of consistent value everywhere. It's hard to tell what's in the foreground and what's in the background, especially in panels like the one under the thud, 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 where it's the guy with the rimmed hat on the left reading the map that's on the... I mean, he's on the right, and he's reading the map that's on the left, and there's a guy like getting choked behind him, which leads into the cop reveal, which is clever. But because the line weight on the background stuff and the foreground stuff is the same, and the values are the same, things in the back are as dark as things in the front, it visually becomes really confusing because we can't quite tell what's supposed to be in the foreground and what's supposed to be in the background.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, because then when you zoom out and you look at the page as a whole, it gets visually kind of confusing because there's no like hierarchy. Like in the one where, you know, the horse is running behind him and he's holding the map and his head's over in the right underneath the take the map panel. It's very hard at first glance to tell what's in the foreground, what's in the background, and then after a minute you kind of get it and you're like, oh, okay. I think what you should do if you decide to finish this is darken the things in the foreground and lighten the things in the background so we instantly get the spatial kind of hierarchy. Good job, again, doing the thing we mentioned earlier where the cowboy has the same hair color and clothing color as the inmate reveal who's playing the cowboy at the end. He's got the blonde and he's got the kind of orange clothing. Really good tie together. He's even got the beard and stuff, so good job doing that. Tying them together thematically with the color is really good. The only other thing I would say is you could probably lose a panel or two just because of the spatial thing I mentioned earlier. This one gets very busy right in the middle. The top three are really effective. They've got enough room to breathe and show what's going on. Then the horse, the thud, 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 the take the map, the looking at the map, and then those three progressively smaller panels. That's a ton of information right in the middle, and then you get this big reveal panel at the bottom that there's enough room for everything in it to make sense. I would suggest kind of rethinking the middle to not be so dense, because things like that gasp panel, when you shrink it down and look at it, probably won't even be noticeable at first glance. It's a cool thing, and if you had 2 pages to work with, I can tell that you would be really good at planning out panels that have a feeling, because that big wide one and then the one of the eye, and it narrows, and like the panels are narrowing almost like the eye would narrow as it focuses on the map and reads it. that's a super effective compositional tool that is really good for telling the story.
That's cool.
Really cool. But because this is all in one page, it's so much information that we might miss some of it at first glance. But yeah, really well designed page, really cool composition, really cool use of breaking panels in certain spots, not breaking them in others, having text break panels and exist between multiple frames. That's really cool. The only big thing I would change on this is just the fact that everything has the same line weight and everything has the same value, because again, we start to lose what's in the foreground and what's in the background, what's primary information, what's secondary information. So one way to get around that is things in the background don't have lines, it's just solid colors. That's the Disney rule. Background paintings are just paintings without lines. Characters in the foreground have lines. That way the characters pop off. Another way to do it is that they just have thinner lines or lighter lines in the background. A third way to do it is that the values on the stuff in the foreground are darker and they're lighter in the background. Another way to do it is temperature, where either warmer or cooler is in the front and then the opposite is in the back. All different ways to do it, you know. But I do think that this needs a little bit of that, because especially in panels like the one where the dude's choking the guy in the background and the guy's reading the map in the foreground, it's really hard to see what's going on at first glance.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, shit, you covered it all.
Actually, there's one thing I don't quite
something?
understand, because I played D&D for a few times, and I couldn't understand the thing that you went with a Western theme, because D&D is actually a fantasy-based game. So wasn't sure what's going on, and I didn't know either that you cannot have a dice in prison. So I wouldn't understand the story at all unless you explained it to me. So yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah, the dice in prison thing, I guess, is just like paraphernalia in terms of like you're not supposed to gamble in prison. I kind of get that. The D&D thing I agree with. Unless there's some kind of well-known Western counterpart for D&D, I'm not aware of. There probably is some expansion, but there's other RPGs that are set in more Western settings you could probably pull from. Obviously, they're not as recognizable as D&D, so I get that. But yeah, I do like the little thing where you had the bubble zoomed out of the dice that shows that he rolled a 1 and he's getting choked. It's like a critical fail thing. I like that. But
I do have one small thing, and that is, it's an average Dragons title, and doesn't. I actually, I mean, you could have given them Dragons to Ride, maybe.
Yeah. I was so busy. I was so busy creating the comic as a comic. Yeah. I totally forgot about the title component, right?
So that's only, it's kind of a small thing, because I think we were so engaged with the actual comic itself, despite, you know, some of those issues with depth and all that stuff. And the panel layout was so cool and it's so engaging. But it completely made us forget about the
average Dragons title doesn't really apply to this at all, other than the Dungeons and Dragons reveal. Right. But then it's like, why is it average is the thing, because nothing about this feels average. If it was like Western Dragons or something, maybe. But that is one thing to keep in mind, is that this doesn't really work with the prompt. But otherwise, well drawn, well executed. You're good at organizing the panels and the compositions. Just start thinking about your spatial hierarchy and the theming. But otherwise, really cool.
Yep. Yeah. All right, moving on. J-Mob.
Hey, J-Mob, what's going on? So, J-Mob, you get the prize for the most original composition and page design. By far, I can't tell. I think you were looking at maybe some Mobius. But yeah, this is a really cool page design. Really well done. Really original. You got away from like the just doing boxes and overlapping things type format that most people fall into when they're learning comics, which again is totally valid. We're just saying good job on you for trying to force yourself to do something a little harder, a little weirder. But yeah. So anyway, you got the dragon flying in front of the big green dragon, and he goes, "Sup, Joe?" And he goes, "Oh, hey, Bill. How's it going?" And then lady dude, and then pretty average lady dude, and he's so an average dragon. That's the big green guy saying that, because the big green guy is like super magnificent, whatever, and the little I can't tell. There's someone riding on the little red dragon with like battle axes or something. He's crossing in the air. That's a little confusing because the two riders never really play a part in it, because it's very clear from your speech bubbles that the dragons are the ones talking, not the riders. So you almost don't need the riders in the composition at all. It could just be the two dragons, so they're a little unnecessary. I love that panel when he goes, "Oh, hey, Bill," where it has the eye looking down at him with a little smile on the mouth. There's a lot of good character there.
Yeah.
Really cool first panel with that split up 3 thing and the kind of background. Again, what I was just saying in terms of spatial hierarchy, you've got brighter, warmer colors in the dragons that are in the front, and then in the background, the levels are really subdued and it's very cool colors. So the foreground pops off. That's a really obvious example of what we were just talking about. You did a really cool S-curve thing where the whole composition is basically like an S. It curls down from the A through the dragon and then curls around again. I would have liked it a little more if it didn't turn into a straight line on the right-hand side. If it kind of had that same arc that the curve has coming out of the A down into the dragon, balanced off on the other side where it curls down around the circle and comes down to the bottom. So it's like a big S that follows the contour of that yellow circle and comes down to the bottom line. That would have been a lot better than interrupting that really graceful curve with sort of a straight line just because the canvas ran out of room. I get that that's a little unavoidable, but if you do want to touch this up and put it online later, I think it would help a lot. One thing I feel like you should do that Mobius did a lot is he would design the titles often to fit the art style of the page so that they didn't look separate, because average dragons right now is just kind of written in your normal writing Sharpie font, and then you've got this really elegant kind of beautiful 70s adventure style with everything else. Maybe having the title designed to fit the rest of that look would be a benefit.
And the fonts for the speech themselves are a little bit like they're not very consistent. It's not bad, but I just feel that they could be a little bit consistent. So
yeah, that's like you've got it almost falls apart as you go through it, which is the weird thing. So follow me as I describe this. The first panel is the most detailed. Everything is finished in that panel. The hierarchy's there. The drawing is done. The colors are there. It's rendered just enough. It's finished. Then you've got a simpler panel with the hey, Bill, and it's the zoom in on the face, and that looks pretty good. It's like it's the most finished panel other than the first one. Then you've got the zoom in of the dragon arcing down, and he says, "Sup, Joe," and that's a little less finished. And then you've got the "So how's it going?" with the background behind of the blue, and there's really nothing going on in the background. It's just kind of line art on blue. Then the "So how's it going?" and those don't look anywhere near as finished as the hey, Bill panel. They're very just kind of sketchy, and there's no finished line art on them. There's not a lot of detail. Then you've got the later dude, which also feels like a quick sketch compared to the first 2 or 3 panels. And then that final panel, if he is so an average dragon, almost doesn't look done.
Yeah.
So it sort of starts really finished and slowly becomes unfinished as you get to the end. Because that first panel is so good, I would say it's in your best interest to finish the rest of it in that same way, because it'll be a really beautiful finished page if you do. Yeah, I don't know. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love the colors on this one. I think it's my favorite in terms of that bright pink, hot pink, and the lovely green and the blues. Like that combination just makes me, want to. Yeah, it's just so beautiful. I love it.
Really good 70s neons.
Yeah, they're really cool. If you took the rest of all the stuff that Dan was just saying, but you took that first panel, like triptych panel thing at that level of finish, and you kind of applied it to everything else, I think it would be an absolutely beautiful, just a piece of art.
Yeah, definitely.
The story itself, it does fit the theme and all of that. It's a little bit underwhelming, but it works. It works. But I really think the art in this is fantastic. So please finish it.
Yeah. I also love the colors, and one thing is that if I remember correctly, in the whip thread you posted the first panel that was arranged a little differently. It wasn't in a straight line, those three windows, but it was arranged like a staircase, and it looked a bit more powerful, I guess. Either way, I really love the idea.
Right. I saw in the chat there's a comment about how he honestly thought it was intentional, like they were going away into the clouds, like they were receding into the distance, and J-Mob said that was the intention. That is not the case, and I can tell you why it's not the case. I don't know if you're just saying that because it popped up, but the reason that doesn't work is for a few very specific reasons. Number one, the most detailed finished panel with the highest level of detail is the first one, where we can clearly see all the features on the green dragon, including the eye, the tongue, the mouth. There's little drawings, there's lighting effects, there's a background that's fleshed out. And he's closer in the So How's It Going panel than he is in that panel where he's farther away in the beginning of the comic. So if he's closer, we should be seeing even more detail, because as things get away, they get less detailed, they get more washed out. So the closer he is, the more detail we should see. That works in the first panel and the Oa Hey Bill panel, because when we zoom in and see his eye, it's a lot more detailed. We can see the pupil, we can see the specular in the eye, we can see the little tooth in his mouth. That makes sense. The camera zooms in, we see more detail. But in the So How's It Going panel, we're closer to that dragon than we are in the establishing shot, and yet we see even less detail. We don't even see any dark line art. Then, which is weird, we're farther away from the magenta dragon in the later dude panel than we are in the Sub Joe panel, yet the black lines are thicker and the color is darker, which makes it seem like it's even closer than the Sub Joe one is. So this is a leveling issue and a detail issue.
Yeah.
The He Is So an Average Dragon panel, the head is almost the exact same size and in the exact same shape as in the establishing shot. I get that you put it against the yellow to imply that it would be a silhouette against the sun, and that's really cool. The problem with that is that we don't see the sun anywhere else in the comics, so we have to make that assumption. If the sun was in that establishing shot behind the blue rocks, or if it was in the background in that big area of blue underneath the Sup Joe, it would make sense to have a payoff where he's in front of the sun and we can kind of have a silhouette. But because that isn't set up, it just feels like you didn't finish the drawing of the dragon, because it's the exact same shape of the dragon in the first panel. So that's why it doesn't work in terms of receding into the clouds, losing detail, becoming less finished as it goes. It's because the darkest drawing on the page is the later dude right before the end. That's the darkest, most leveled down thing with solid blacks and dark magentas. And because closer panels like the So How's It Going have less detail than farther away panels like the establishing shot. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense to me. The other thing I would add is level of detail is a huge thing for drawing focus, right? So the more detail you have in something, that's where your eye's going to go. And when I look at this page in total, the highest level of detail is the first panel. So actually, even with that amazing S-curve and all that composition that's going on, my eye still kind of wants to go back up to that panel.
Exactly.
So you're not, with that detail being diminished as you go on, you're actually kind of fighting against the awesome sort of composition you have. So just bring it up a bit more, I think, with those other panels. And if it's consistently done to that first panel scale, I love actually that middle dragon, the big magenta one, how it disappears into the cloud. I mean, that's cool. That's fine.
Yeah, really cool.
You know, it works there. But
because the focal point, because the focal point of that dragon is the face. It's not the back of his neck. That's not important information, so you can fade it out. But if we're closer in the How's It Going panel, we need to see as much or more detail than in the establishing shot. That's just a basic atmospheric perspective rule. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's the thing. You can use terms like atmospheric and stuff like that to get around finishing stuff as much as it maybe should be finished. But the bottom line is that if he's closer to us in a panel and he has less detail than when he's farther away, it just comes off as confusing. He's not close enough for it to be blurry, like the camera hasn't focused yet. He's still, it's a wide shot with the other dragon next to him. It's not like he's too close to the camera and he's getting fuzzed out. He's very much just a tiny bit closer than in that establishing shot. So those kind of tricks don't really work in that case. But anyway, that's our suggestion. Yep. We want you to finish it because that first panel is beautiful, and if you took that into the rest of the comic, this would be an absolutely stunning piece.
Yep.
So there you go.
Do it, man. Do it. All right. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. We're 3 away. No, 4.
Oh God, 4 away.
So let's snap it. Make it snappy.
Power through it. We're 2 hours. Jesus.
Let's try and do it 2 hours. We got 10, 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
No, that's okay. Let's just keep going.
Okay. So this is I Can't Let You Do That. I think this is the only I Can't Let You Do That.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. All right. So my village is under attack. I have to do something, and then the TNT, and then and then the I Can't Let You Do That. So in terms of boiling a page down to the simplest amount of panels, you get the award for that. You've told the story in 4 panels. We know what's going on. You've made the villain look sufficiently different from the main character so that we understand one of them is the attacker and the other one is on the defense. So let's look at this. Oh, wait a minute. I read this totally wrong the first time.
Yeah, I think I did as well. So
there is a size issue here. Okay, so my village is under attack person is lighting the TNT.
Yeah.
We can see from the robe that they're wearing in both of those panels that in the final panel they are the tiny person in the bottom right-hand corner who is almost invisible due to the composition. You almost can't tell that they're there. However, a set of human-sized lips, because you can see the wick of the TNT and you can see her fingers in that shot with the match, a set of human-sized lips blows out the wick.
Yeah.
And then it is revealed that the thing that blew the wick out is a massive giant that is 30 times bigger than a person. So the only way this could make sense is if that thing was growing as it did it. It was human-sized and then it blew up to become a giant. But you haven't told us anything in the comic to imply that that's the case. We didn't get to see it grow. So you get this narrative weirdness where we see a human-sized face blow it out, and then it's revealed that there's this massive giant, but there's no other person standing next to the TNT. So then we either have to assume the giant somehow got smaller to blow the TNT out, or the woman blew her own TNT out, which is even more confusing. So the narrative is a little strained here. It doesn't quite work because of the size issue. The rendering and the execution is pretty good. Obviously fundamental stuff. Stuff like the anatomy, the hands are a little tiny, the forearms are a little tiny on that giant compared to like the head, the shoulders, all that stuff. That's all technical stuff you're going to get better at the more you draw anyway. I don't want to spend a ton of time on that because that'll improve naturally as you study. Same goes for everybody else, obviously. The big thing I want to focus on is the narrative kind of dissonance, because the blowing out the wick does not make sense with the reveal that this guy's the size of a house.
I actually didn't. I knew that was a problem immediately, but I saw the little figure and I kind of got it. So I didn't actually have that problem, but it definitely is one.
Yeah, because how does he blow that wick out? How is he 2 centimeters away?
in my mind, when I saw the final panel, I went back and I reimagined the face as being not actually physically near the match. That's how I justified it.
Because the weird thing is, this is the strange thing, and I would recommend trying this. If you scroll the page so that the girl and the TNT aren't in frame, and it's just the wick gets blown out, and then a guy holding a spear casting a spell says, "I can't let you do that." That actually works, because there's enough information to tell that nose and that paralleps belongs to the monster, and it's very clear that he just blew the TNT out and he's casting a spell on her. That actually almost works better than including the whole frame and showing the girl on the TNT, because then it becomes this weird, like, how did a giant get that close to it and have human-sized face?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really the only thing. Either crop that out and, or like, size it up so we actually see the wick in frame and it's proportionally the same size it is in that third panel, and fix it that way, or size that giant down and actually, like, have it be more human sized, because right now not only is he the size of a house, so that second panel doesn't make sense, he's also like 50 feet away from her, because there's like, this chasm cliff, and then there's some space, and then he's coming up out of it. He's real far away from her too, so it just, one thing you could have done, actually, might have been more effective, is in the second panel, this might actually be a better fix. In the second panel, show the wick actually lighting, and have it, have the match there, and have the wick be sparking, like she lit the TNT. And then just have that third panel be a wisp of wind coming in from the left, blowing it out, without the match there at all, and have her go, huh? And then zoom out and show the big dude in the distance doing the "I can't let you do that." The other thing you could do, if you don't want to do the wisp of wind, is actually show the energy from his magic spell undoing the wick and putting it out, and then zoom out and show the "I can't let you do that." The big problem is that you've included the face, and it's a human-sized face. So probably the easiest fix, again, get rid of that human-sized face in panel 3. Just show the wick being blown out after it got sparked in panel 2, and then you should be good to go. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I've got nothing else.
Yeah.
Good execution. Again, minor things with clarity. Clarity, clarity, clarity. It's the biggest issue when doing a one page.
Mm-hmm.
The tiniest things can confuse it. Anyway, moving on. 2. Catapano art.
Catapano.
So we got a guy, werewolves. He's got a sword. And we zoom out and we see that there's like a chick tied to a slab, Frank Frazetta style, and there's some werewolves coming, and Wolf gets all close, and then the dude has the eye reaction shot that you get in anime a lot that I love, where he's like, what? Really cool. And then he comes in and he slashes and he kills him, and then he runs in and he fights the werewolf and kills it, and then he leans over and he kisses the girl, and you get a reveal that she's been bitten on her neck, which implies that she's, been turned and is becoming a werewolf in the future. So then you see the guy walking away and the girl's impaled on the slab because he had to, like, mercy kill her. And I think even, you actually even gave her claws on her fingers and a little bit of a snout on that final panel to show she was turning.
Oh, so, yeah, you're right.
That's cool. Right. Really cool. We all missed that the first time. Really cool. Yeah, this is cool. One thing I was trying to figure out is if that first panel was supposed to be like later in the timeline and then it flashes back because he's got the bloody sword kind of stuck into something. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's I think it's chronological.
Yeah, I think it is as well. Yeah. Because he left the sword with her, so it
right. Good
probably
point.
Wouldn't have been after.
Right. But again, really cool reveal at the end with her turning. Really cool narrative thing. It's very clear what's happening the whole time. Cool panel layout. Good balance of stuff. The big thing that we had all discussed that you could probably work on is the leveling, because your drawings are getting to a pretty good place. Your panel layouts are getting to a good place. Good compositions, good action, good moving the eye around. But things like in the first panel, that arm is in the foreground. It's not dark enough to really like pop out and show us like, boom. And also visually, it's creating some tangents because the knuckles are perfectly lining up with the bottom of the frame. The thumb is just barely touching the end of the blood spill coming off the blade. The guy's hunched back is not cropping over the wolf coming up behind him because there's just enough of that bush to kind of frame it perfectly. A lot of framing tangents where there's shared edges going on. Lots of that in that first panel. Again, in the second panel, stuff like the line of the bicep of that killed wolf in the foreground is perfectly separate from the tree roots behind it. Just lots of weird shared things. Like, see how the back corner of that slab in panel 2 is cropping over the wolf walking forwards? More of that. More spatial stuff where this is in front of this thing. And it's, it'll make the space feel more natural and less awkward, because right now, in the first panel, that guy is very vignetted out. He's separate from everything else. He's just kind of floating there with a wolf above him and a wolf below him. And you want a little more visual overlap, a little more hierarchy in your value. Like, look how dark the cast shadow is getting on the girl's face in panel 3. That should be in the arm in panel 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
I also have an issue with readability. I would make it a little darker, so there would be more contrast, at least for me personally.
Yeah. I mean, I get them. A lot of times if you see the pencils that, like, Marvel artists will turn in before they go to the anchors, they do look like this because there's no point in fully rendering the blacks in the pencils because the ink will take care of that, so it would be wasted time. But you're turning this in as a final for this contest, so you want to showcase it off as a final. And because of that, the values kind of being washed out and all over the place is a problem. If you are intending on inking this, you can solve a lot of that. But for as it stands, that is a problem.
I think that bottom right panel, the last panel, is probably the best in terms of line weight and sort of value blocking or value grouping. And
yeah, I would agree too.
I think that's closer to where you want to go.
Definitely. Yeah, lots of really great overlap too. There's only one tangent I can see in the bottom, and it's that extended finger of the wolf hand is perfectly framed by the slab.
Yeah.
You would have wanted the finger to come up a little higher and have that curved fingernail kind of crop over the woman's thigh and come forward, because right now it's perfectly contained in that facing side of the slab.
It's everything else
framed. In that panel, everything else in that panel is great. You've got the hand overlapping the slab, the rock face behind it, then you got the smoke, and then you got the dude silhouetted against it with the kind of bushes behind him, and the girls on the slab, and the blood's dripping down in front of it. Like, really great space design there. The only thing is that finger perfectly being within the bounds of that slab. One other thing I might change if you want to take this to final is the panel where the dude is swinging his sword and there's a big arc. I would have the arm holding the sword go up to more of a 45-degree angle and have it cropping over underneath the panel that says the improbable happens, and continue that arc out of the panel up to the right. So we see the full swing and it breaks the panel on both sides. Because now, only breaking it on the bottom feels a little weird, and his arms are kind of a straight line. That back arm and then the arm holding the sword kind of make a straight line. If you raise the sword arm up a little higher and have that arc continue out of the frame at the top, it'll feel way more dynamic and way more energetic. But yeah.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite panels, but I think breaking it out even more would make it even better.
Right. And the right way to do the thing you're doing under that panel where it says sometimes your efforts are more than enough, you're kind of implying it, so I think you had this in mind, but just to say, the figure, because you show the guy running forward and basically throwing his sword as a series of motions in 3. What you would want to do is have the one in the back be almost invisible, the one in the middle be a little more visible, and the one in the front actually be drawn like it's there. That's how you imply him running forward and doing that. Right now, the two in the back and the one in the front are almost the same line weight, so it reads as three different people running forward. So you'd want to have, a little less visible, more visible, and then the actual guy throwing the thing to like kind of have that tracing effect like you ran forward. And then the only other thing in that panel is that the wolf's head with the blade stuck in it could be a lot bigger than it is. You could really pop that forward and interrupt the space in a cool way and show us more of that gore. Tiny things on this before we wrap up on it. The font doesn't match the drawing. It's another thing where you're using kind of a silly, goofy, it's a comic book font, but like you should just draw your own font or make your own font or find something a little more gothic or something that has a little more weight to it. Let me see.
I've got one minor thing, and it's a.
Is it the number?
The number?
Is it the 100%?
Yeah, that is one of them, but I wasn't going to say that. It's a perspective thing, and it's been bugging me this whole time, so I got to say it.
Sure.
The perspective of the slab in that second panel, the middle panel. I know it's like a slanted slab. We can see it in the last panel, but it just feels so off compared to that sort of Dutch angle of the scene, and so I think that could be done a little bit better.
I would say, yeah, definitely.
It's just my eyes keeps going to it, going. Yeah. So I know it's a technical thing, but yeah, that's
I'll post this in the chat just in terms of font ideas. I would go with something more like this. There's a graphic novel series called Priest that I used to love. I still look at it from time to time. Really, really awesome drawing. But he has two very distinct fonts. He's got the kind of scratched-in font when the guy talks, which is the one on the left that says, "My name is Ivan Isaacs." And then he's got this very gothic font that he uses for the voiceovers and establishing shots. That's this very flat, square letters, crosses in the sort of very, very gothic look to it. Something like those would probably be more effective than the sort of cartoony font that's going on. But again, it's a minor thing. And the only other minor thing to mention is that spell out 100% maybe, or I would actually change it. I would change it from 100%. I would change it to guaranteed, or like a word like nothing is certain. Nothing is nothing is certain. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is given, or yeah. Any
of those synonyms for that.
And I think this is what probability game.
It is.
Yeah. That's why the 100% is there, I'm guessing, is that it's probability game. But you can still have it be probability game and use something, because the number and then a percent sign in something that's so realistic and dark and whatever jumps out as kind of weird, because, the numbers and that. So I would change it to something that has a little more weight and reflects the art. So nothing is guaranteed, nothing is assured, nothing is given, nothing is certain. Those are all better solutions to that particular panel than the number 100 and a percent sign. But yeah, really good stuff.
Yep. All right. I think we covered that. So second to last.
Average Dragons. All right. So this one's cool. It's the dragons talking about how average dragons steal princesses, but they don't want to be average dragons because they might get more money for a prince. Then they go steal a prince and they bring him back. And then this knight dude who's got a cool little mustache shows up and he goes, "Sir Francis." And then you hear the dragons freaking out and getting hurt in the background. And then the two ride off and there's some hearts and a rainbow. And the dragons in the foreground say, "Maybe average isn't so bad." But, yeah. So, good narrative. Really good narrative. Really good tie-in from the first panel to the last panel where they're, the very first bubble is, average dragons do this, and they're happy, and the last panel is maybe average. Like, you call back to the word average, you call back to the dragon saying it in the foreground. Clear distinction from happy in the first panel to the X'd over eyes, hurt in the last panel. Really good tie together. the big thing with this one, because it's well drawn in most of the panels, the idea is there. The characters are really great. I love the horse. I love the knight dude's design. I love the prince. I love the dragon's look. Really good character studies you did in the bottom, all that stuff. The only thing I would suggest is that you put some more attention and time into those middle panels, because that first panel with the 3 dragons looks really good. Then the 3 under it look kind of good, and then the 3 under that start to get really messy, especially in the one where the knight rides in and there's the, you know, the silhouette of the cave and stuff. That one almost doesn't fit the rest. It looks unfinished. Then you're back to really good with the knight sitting on the horse, and we're back to the style that was in the first panel, and the Sir Francis, and that's really good. And then it's messy again in the Oh My God panel, and you can't really read some of the words, and it kind of gets all over the place. And then you're back to that clean style in the final panel. So stylistically, try to make everything fit that clean look in the establishing shot, in the Sir Francis shot, and the final shot. It's okay if you don't want to make the comic frames perfect squares. It's okay if you want to give them the thicker lines to show them off, but what's inside those panels stylistically should match the rest, because right now the stuff in the middle feels a little unfinished compared to the stuff in the establishing shot and the Sir Francis shot. But yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I think she was really pressed for time.
Sure.
Which is why probably a lot of this was sketchy, but that's definitely. I mean, that we're gonna get so much Gold Guys panel where we can sort of see their silhouette with the 3 eyes, but then there's 3 other sets of eyes under it, and I was a bit confused. I was like, oh, are there 6 now? Or
yeah, it's
you
weird.
know, it was just a little bit. It threw me a little bit. Same with the Sir Francis panel.
In the first shot, there's 3, then there's 1.
Yeah.
In the first panel, there's 3 dragons, then there's 1 dragon, then there's 4 dragons, or 5 maybe?
Yeah, 5?
And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's 1 again, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Sir Francis panel, and then there's 2 in the final panel.
So the consistency thing is, I mean, maybe they're the paws, right? The claws, I don't know, but... So
if it was 3 the whole time...
Yeah.
Hold on, I might be getting an emergency phone call. 1 second.
Okay.
Sure.
No.
Kyle, is this an emergency? Do you need me to get you? Can I call you back in like a half hour when I'm done talking about dragons? Alright, I love you. I'll call you back. Bye. Sorry, that was my friend mid-trip on his way back from New York. I thought he might need me to pick him up somewhere.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, back to this.
Oh, thanks, by the way, from everyone in the stream who's thanking us for our time and stuff. So.
Oh, yeah, totally.
This is all good fun for us.
I'm sorry it's gone so long for those of you who are up late. I hate doing contests where you pick a top 3 and then you don't talk about anyone else's. You don't talk about anyone else's work.
Yeah.
So I really
that's why we do that extra stream, because everyone we feel everyone needs it, deserves it.
I just wanted to get it all out, talk about everyone who did it. Thanks for doing the contest. I can tell you all learned a lot. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So there's a bit of consistency stuff here. I think the final payoff, where I think it's hilarious that this big knight, and I love the character and the horse especially. I love that the big knight is coming to save the prince, and they're going off, with love hearts. Definitely those love hearts and the rainbow, they're a huge, payoff part. So make those clear as well.
Yeah, the hearts could be a little more legible as hearts.
Yeah, because I had to kind of imagine that they were, and I think they are. But
yeah. The only other thing I'll bring up about this one is that in your attached files you have a sketch for average dragons in the beginning, and the energy of that sketch, the composition of the fire being blown, and then the wavy line coming down on the right into the dragon's wing, and then the other wavy line kind of snaking around into the girl's hair in the bottom. That's cool. Really cool composition in that one. I kind of wish more of that was in your final, just because uniting the page with those weird, sinewy, curvy lines that start at the top and kind of wrap through the panels down to the bottom would have been a really cool, just kind of artistic thing to do. But your final is still great. I just really liked seeing that sketch underneath it. That feels like if you do want to do another comic page just to get better at comics, do that one, because even as a sketch, it's really beautiful, which means as a final, it's probably going to look even better.
Yep, I totally agree with that. She's actually one of the ones who wants to do comics. She's got web comics planned and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. It's totally readable. Like the only real issue was just that the middle ones felt rushed and the character shots felt more finished.
Yep.
Great character sketches, cool stuff. Moving on to Bad Wolf.
The final one. So we got
Not
there.
Wolf, 2 O's.
Wolf. Bad Wolf.
All right. So this is probability game, as said in the first one. And you go through. So it's probability. See, this is good because the first panel sets up probability, and it's got a color scheme that's very blue and cool. And the final panel is inevitability, and it's got a color scheme that's the complement of that, which is very warm and orange. Right off the bat, one thing you could have done, just so the last 2 panels don't feel so separate, is have each panel as you're going through gradually get closer to that orange thing so that it kind of fades into it, because right now the bottom ones are just orange and the top ones are just blue. Blue and cool, purpley, and then orangey, reddy, pinky at the bottom. But, yeah. Good shots here. There isn't really like a wall in that first shot. At first I thought they might be like dancing or something, and then I was like, oh no, she's like pressing her up like against the wall, like cornering her kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there isn't a wall there. And in some of the other panels you've drawn the things in the background, so I think that could have been a little bit clearer. Let's see. I like that panel with her holding the glass. The panel of her bandaging the guy up is cool. The wrestling one is cool. Cool different shots. The bath one is cool.
Yeah, it's drawn well.
Yeah, it is. I think. Okay, one thing that's a little strange. I'm guessing because of the narrative that woman in the first panel is just supposed to be some random woman that she's playing like a probability game, like it says. I think the reveal of the character who she's inevitably in love with or whatever at the end, who's in the last 2 panels, she should probably show up somewhere, like in the background watching them in that first panel, or like bringing her fresh bandages or something in the bandaging up one. She should probably be somewhere besides the last 2. Now, I understand that this is part of a large story that you're working on. I read all your stuff underneath this, but because this comic contest that we're doing for Crucible is just a one-shot page comic thing, all we can look at is the one page. That's the only thing that's valid for contest reasons. In your overall comic, I'm sure you're going to establish that stuff and fix it. I have to critique this as per the rules as a one-shot. As a one-shot, that girl at the end should have some kind of setup in the beginning. Either watching them, maybe jealous, or maybe interested in the background when she's confronting the other girl in panel 1. Maybe bringing her supplies in panel 3. Maybe, in the background carrying something in panel 2. Anywhere, really. Maybe a group of people are watching her fight in the ring in panel 4, and she's one of them or something, and she's obviously worried because she cares about her. There's some kind of emotion on her face. That, as a one-page comic, would help sell this a lot better, because she just kind of comes out of nowhere at the end.
And it actually, it drives home that point of inevitability. Like, she may not even known she was in all of these different panels.
Sure.
In different situations.
Like, she was there all along, and it was always that kind of thing. That's the only big thing, is that she should be established earlier if this is a one-shot. But other than that, the only other real critique I have, other than the obvious thing that, this applies to everybody in the whole contest, just, the boring critique of fundamentals, draw bodies more, get better at doing postures that aren't rigid. This goes for everyone, so I try not to focus on it. The big thing is that the backgrounds don't look finished, whereas the foregrounds clearly have a lot more attention in them. So I would suggest either leave the backgrounds out and just have it be characters like you did in panel 1, even though it's awkward to not have the back wall, or do backgrounds that at least have some kind of finished color or something, because the floating black lines on top of the blue kind of gradient in panel 3 with the bandaging guy one, it feels unfinished as a result. It feels like you started to do a background and then gave up. Same thing with those 2 lines in the background implying that she's in the ring in panel 4. It feels like you started a background and then stopped. It's better to either have no background or to finish the background than to have something in the middle where it feels like you just didn't have enough time. I understand that might have been a time constraint thing. I'm just saying for the purposes of going forward, if that is how you do backgrounds, either finish the background or just leave it out, because having it in the middle is jarring because nothing else is blank line art in the comic, so it stands out. But yeah.
Yep.
Really great studies for this one. Lots of really good studies for this one of women, of hair, of foreshortening and perspective to get the bathtub right, of someone putting somebody in a chokehold, of how people hold glasses. Really great stuff that obviously paid off in the final piece and made it look better. You can see a direct relation from the studies to the final result. So definitely keep doing that in the future.
Yeah, the studies are so tailored. It's great. It's really good.
And now, do you have anything to say about this one, you guys?
No, I think you've pretty much covered everything with this one. I guess no, I actually don't have anything.
Cool.
I think you've got it this time.
Well, now that we're at 2.5 hours,
Yeah.
let's wrap up. I guess I'll let you guys present.
So yeah.
Okay, so the whole point was this was a competition, right? So we've got to pick some people who win. So we're going to go backwards from 3rd place to 1. Yes. And we've got 2 people in 3rd place this time, which is something we always do quite a lot of. And I've probably forgotten who they are.
Might bump it to 3 if that's okay.
Okay.
Might do 3. Now that we've gone through and talked about them, I might do 3 3rd places.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right,
let's do it.
Give me your first 2.
Okay, so the.
Yeah, go ahead, Amit. I'm a bit sleepy right now. So.
I've fucking forgotten, man. I really do. I really have.
You forgot?
Okay, no, just no. I haven't. No, they're all awesome. No, Eliana was one of the joint 3rd places.
Okay.
And the second one of the 3rd was
Zipfelzeus.
Yeah.
Zipfelzeus.
Zipfelzeus
and Eliana are both tied for 3rd, along with I would like to potentially include Catapano with the werewolf one, just for the sheer amount of effort that went into really moving stuff around and camera angles and rendering and drawing and panel breaking and really, really solid effort.
Yeah, and I like the story as well. It fits kind of with the technical. It's almost it's come together a little bit more with him. So I totally get it. One of the reasons that we picked Eliana and Zipfelzeus in the first place was because they were kind of opposites and did 2 ends of the opposites really well. So Eliana nailed. Eliana nailed the story.
That spectrum between story execution and drawing ability, technically.
That's right.
The story stuff and the meaningful narrative that stays with you is definitely in Eliana's just average one. That has a really great, simple story that's told very elegantly in a few panels, and you remember it as a result. The flip side of the spectrum, equally important but separate, is drawing ability. And not much story-wise happens in Zipfelzeus's, but you will remember that cat and that weird dragon lady holding that dragon cat for ages after looking at it, because it stands out so much. So this is a really great example for anyone watching of how both are just as important. The story is memorable in one, the drawing is memorable in the other. So they're both equally important things, and everyone falls somewhere on the spectrum between the two. But if you can learn to do both, your comics will be in a really great place.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, of course,
I guess Capitano. Whatever,
yeah, I just want to give shout out as a tied for third place because you really pushed it in terms of fundamental drawing, scene setup, composition, really filling the frame. You put a ton of work into making this look like a really professional comic, and like that's really great. There's stuff to work on that we mentioned with tangents and things and spatial design and layout and leveling. But like you really put a ton of work into this and you told a narrative that works in one page with a lot of action and a lot of really creative cinematic camera angles, and that is not easy to do. So really good job.
Awesome. So well done, guys. All
number 2.
Guys and gals.
Yeah.
So second place
is Zorantos, right?
To Zorantos.
Yes. Zorantos. What's up? Zorantos' piece gets second place because it feels like an established world. It feels finished. It feels like this cat character has been on many adventures, and this happens to be one of them. It's a really good balance of narrative of what's going on in the words, understandable, and technical execution. You know, everything sits, and when I say technical execution, we're not giving it second because it's drawn better. We're giving it second because the panel design of the page reads better. It's not about drawing ability, it's about narrative of the comic. Every panel that's there needs to be there and tells you an important piece of information that the comic couldn't exist without. Establishing shot, character being thrust in. Being thrust in wakes the dragon up. Dragon attacks. Cat defends, kills dragon, brings the loot, has battle scars like a broken weapon to show it. Then the reveal that ties back to the first one that the woman was tricking him all along. Every panel is necessary. Every panel is good. You clearly put as much thought into the composition and panel layout and narrative as you did into the drawing and the compositions. So really good job with that. It really strikes a good balance.
Yeah. And what I loved about it is it just feels like something I'd want to read more of as well. I want to see that cat in another story. I kind of like that it's contemporary. It's brought into the contemporary. It's not just pure fantasy as well. So,
and because it's all one shot, and it feels like one of many adventures this cat goes on. It feels like next week there will be another one, and I want to go to the website and see what that cat guy is going to do next week. It feels like an installment of a serialized thing that you want more of. So that's good.
And the princess, I actually want to see more of what's annoying shit she does. So it's great. It's really cool.
So yeah, really good stuff.
All right, and for CC4, the winning comic is...
Oh, everyone know already, I think.
Pat Back 98.
Yeah.
You got it. The reason this is the number 1 is because you told a really great story with a really great arc in one page. You designed all the shots to be necessary. You couldn't take any panel out of this and have it work. All of them need to be there. You have a really great setup and a really great reveal at the end where it breaks the universe and you have a twist where it shows everything. It's perfectly designed to be an internet comic, which was kind of the point of this exercise. That's why it was only one page, as we said in the description, is for shareability on the internet and to get around doing that. If this was vertical, like we said on MJR, this is a perfect web comic because it goes and goes and goes and goes, and then you start to realize something's weird, and then you get a quick notice, and then you get the punchline at the end, and it makes sense. And you did some really great cinematic angles. You drew stuff that is hard to draw. You moved the camera around. You designed some really thoughtful characters that tie into those simple characters at the end with color, with the look in the face, the hair color, the costuming, all that stuff. Really cool. You have the dice and the little things on the table. Everything's meaningful. There isn't any useless information in here. You got rid of all the extra stuff and just made a really concise, well-executed one-page thing that has a beginning, a middle, a payoff, has a punchline, is actually funny, and is something that we would like to see more of. So, really good job. It's the best of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about how awesome this comic is already. So
yes.
And I gotta say, well done to everyone who participated and actually finished, because that's actually the first achievement, is that you finished.
Yeah, well done to everybody who tried to finish and didn't make it too. This shit's really
As
tough
well.
to do. Really tough to do. Okay, so like, don't look at it as like a discouraging thing if you didn't necessarily get it done on time. Finish those comics you almost got done. You owe it to yourselves to try and do it and learn from it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
Now that it's been 3 hours or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
2.5.
Great time. So,
good stuff. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, Dan. That was probably our best crit stream ever. So
tons of fun. We'll come back sometime in the future after you do another round of people and do something else. It was really great. Thanks to everybody for participating. Thanks to you two for organizing the whole thing and getting it out. And really great work, everybody. I can see the improvement from this stuff already. So yeah, good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, guys.
I guess we're wrapping up, and yeah.
I think it's time. it's time to end.
I think my brain stopped work already. It's asleep. So yeah. Okay.
Goodbye.
All right.
Thanks, guys. And
farewell.
Take care, Dan.
Soon. Yeah.